Sri Lanka's government has vowed to pay due attention to a damning UN report on war crimes in the country, but stopped short of agreeing to an internationally backed investigation. The decision was made following the release of the long-awaited report that held both security forces and rebels responsible for war crimes. Sri Lanka's civil war ended in 2009 after raging for more than a quarter of a century. 6 years later, the United Nations is due to release a long-delayed report into war crimes committed by the government and Tamil Tiger rebels during the conflict. Sri Lanka's new government unveiled plans to launch a Truth and Reconciliation Commission, similar to that used by South Africa, to look into the allegations. The move was announced by Sri Lanka's Foreign Minister, Mr. Mangale Samarawira, in Geneva.
This mechanism is envisaged as having a dual structure: a compassionate council composed of religious dignitaries from all major religions in this country, and a structure composed of commissioners. 2, an office on missing persons based on the principle of the family's right to know, to be set up by statute with expertise from the ICRC and in line with internationally accepted standards.
The government's promised to investigate civil war atrocities by both sides, but world bodies have been frustrated by failed plans and lack of criminal indictments. South Africa is to advise Sri Lanka on its Truth and Reconciliation Commission, which it used to confront its own apartheid-era crimes. Colombo also proposing a criminal justice mechanism and compensation for the victims. China says it hopes for peace on the Korean peninsula after the North says it is working to improve its nuclear weapons in quality and quantity. China's foreign ministry said it hoped relevant parties will do more to ensure peace and stability on the Korean peninsula. He said China is committed to the denuclearization on the Korean peninsula, committed to realizing peace and stability on the peninsula, and committed to resolving the relevant issue through dialogue and consultation. Late last week, the North Space Agency said it was readying a new satellite for launch, indicating it may fire an upgraded long-range ballistic missile, timed to a national anniversary next month. The minister said Pyongyang had the right to peacefully utilize its airspace, but the relevant UN Security Council resolutions limiting these activities should be implemented. The activities could be part of work to produce new nuclear material that would be a step toward adding to the country's nuclear stockpile. North Korea said that its main nuclear complex, which has been the source of fissile material used in the country's atomic weapons program, was operating, and said it was working to improve its nuclear weapons in quality and quantity. The comments follow a declaration by the North in 2013 vowing to restart all nuclear facilities, including the main nuclear reactor in Yongbyon that had been shuttered in 2007. DPRK is short for the North's official name, the Democratic People's Republic of Korea. The country often makes threats against the United States and South Korea. Innovations have been made to improve nuclear weapons in quality and quantity as required by the prevailing situation. Last Monday, the North Space Agency said it was readying a new satellite for launch, indicating it may fire an upgraded long-range ballistic missile, timed to a national anniversary next month. Recent satellite imagery of the Yongbyon complex indicated new activity at 2 areas there, the main reactor and a chemical laboratory, where spent fuel can be converted to fuel for nuclear arms. North Korea declared in April 2013, at the height of tensions arising from Pyongyang's anger over joint military drills by US and South Korean forces, that it would restart all nuclear facilities. The Yongbyon plant had been shut in 2007 under an agreement with 5 countries, including the United States and China, in exchange for diplomatic and economic incentives. In 2008, North Korea destroyed the cooling tower at its plutonium-producing reactor in a symbolic move to show its commitment to an international nuclear deal. Pacific communities are facing many challenges in accessing clean water supply. At the 8th Pacific Water Conference, water utilities in the region identified strategies to overcome this growing concern. Topics include water and gender, asset management, water and technology, and non-revenue water challenges and solutions. This has been the problem faced by two of Papua New Guinea's main water supply regulators, Water PNG and Ida Ranu. According to research presented in the sessions, huge amounts of water is wasted or lost before it reaches consumers. On a brighter note, non-revenue water can be the #1 source of income if water utilities have control and monitoring. A working team is now putting together recommendations for the ministerial meet on later this week. This would be the first positive step taken by the Pacific Water and Waste Management Association to involve government ministers. The call is for governments to adapt and be more inclusive in eradicating obstacles faced by Pacific communities.
Welcome back. Japan's parliament has passed contentious security bills into law from today in a move that could see Japanese troops fight abroad for the first time in 70 years. Lawmakers approved the bills to ease restrictions on the country's tightly controlled military, while outside, thousands rallied in a last-ditch show of opposition to laws they fear could fundamentally reshape the proudly pacifist nation. Meanwhile, Japan has begun cleaning up after torrential rains caused by massive floods. Also in Japan, a volcano in Kyushu has erupted. Another eruption in North Sumatra, Indonesia, sends ash spewing 3 kilometers into the air. China and Russia conduct a joint drill in case of the event of an earthquake. And also in China, a food festival of crabs kicks off. Kartini Knox has these reports.
Residents in Ibaraki Prefecture are working to clean up their homes after parts of the prefecture were inundated last Thursday when torrential downpours caused flooding. 7 days have passed since the Kinugawa River breached a levee. Residential areas remain partially underwater where the bank burst, and at least 2,700 residents were taking shelter. Record-breaking rainfall that caused massive floods last week also triggered mudslides. 118 such incidents were reported mainly in Kanto and Tohoku. The mudslides partially destroyed 30 homes. Officials of Ibaraki Prefecture say 14 Joso City residents who were reported missing after last week's floods have been found unharmed. One still remains missing. 2 people have been confirmed dead in the city, though 5 more have died in other parts of northern Japan from floods triggered by torrential rains last week. Japan's Environment Ministry says nearly 400 bags of weeds and other waste contaminated with radioactive materials were washed into a river during the torrential rain in Fukushima Prefecture. The plastic bags contained weeds, branches and soil from cleanup work in Itate village in the prefecture. The area was contaminated by fallout from the 2011 Fukushima Daiichi nuclear accident. The ministry says that of the 395 bags that were washed away, 314 were recovered, but about half of them were torn and their contents missing. Environment Minister Yoshio Mokizuki noted on Tuesday that the grass and branches in the bags had been collected recently and had relatively low radiation levels. He suggested that the possibility they will affect the environment is low. 2,000 police and military personnel are out in force on the ground and from the air, but many parts of the city remain submerged, and Japanese media speculate bodies may be found once the waters have retreated. Japanese media has said that few residents were able to evacuate in time as local authorities failed to warn them early enough. Locals also say the floods were unexpected. Some 3,000 residents have lost their homes and live in temporary accommodation throughout the city, according to Yomiuri newspaper. NHK has also reported that 12,000 homes remain without clean water as the city's water treatment plant was affected by the flood. Also in Japan, Mount Aso on Japan's southwestern island of Kyushu erupted on Monday. An NHK camera captured images of black smoke rising above the crater. The meteorological agency says the smoke rose as high as 2,000 meters. Officials observed large rocks flying near the eruption. The agency has issued an alert level of 3 on a scale of 5. Level 3 means do not approach the volcano. The agency is calling for caution against falling volcanic rocks and pyroclastic flows in areas within about 2 kilometers of the crater. The government has set up a task force in the Prime Minister's office. The meteorological agency says the eruption appears to have occurred in one of the craters of the Nakadake volcano at Mount Aso. Nakadake is inside the Great Caldera of Mount Aso. The caldera is one of the largest in Japan and on a global scale. The agency says the ash cloud from the Nakadake No. 1 crater has reached a height of about 2,000 meters and is drifting to the northwest. The operator of a cableway in Aso says about 10 sightseers were near the crater at the time of the eruption, but they have all evacuated to a cableway station. Aso city officials say about 30 tourists and tourist facility employees have taken shelter inside a cableway station. Japanese police say that there were no reports of injuries caused by the eruption. The police sent helicopters to the area to assess the damage. The Air Self-Defense Force deployed 2 F-2 fighter aircraft to check the situation. Indonesia's Mount Sinabung erupted, sending ash 3 kilometers into the air as volcanic activity remains high. An official at the observation center in Mount Sinabung says the eruption began at 8 a.m. local time. The eruption is one of the biggest since it became active recently. Columns of volcanic ash stood at least 3,000 meters. At least 2 tremors were recorded and post-eruption continued to happen. Activity of the volcano remains at dangerous, the highest alert level according to Indonesia's National Disaster Mitigation Agency, BNPB. BNPB said it was the biggest eruption since June. More than 2,500 people were evacuated at the time of the June eruption. No further evacuations were expected after the latest eruption. Mount Sinabung became active again in 2010 after being dormant for centuries. At least 11 people were killed in an eruption in February last year. Sinabung is one of nearly 130 active volcanoes in the world's most populous country, which stands along the Ring of Fire volcanic belt around the shores of the Pacific Ocean. China and Russia have put up a joint earthquake rescue drill in Tongjiang city of northeast China's Heilongjiang province. The drill simulated a disaster site with cut-offs of water, electricity and heat supply after a 7.6 magnitude earthquake. China sent 50 doctors and 9 rescue vehicles to treat the injured people. Apart from the doctors, over 100 health and medical experts and emergency rescuers from China and Russia were also at the site. The Chinese rescue team will fly to Russia's Khabarovsk city on Wednesday for another joint drill. Disaster medicine is an important part of China-Russia health cooperation. The 2 countries will conduct different kinds of pragmatic, cooperative projects, including joint drills, visits, academic meetings, and remote communication. A food festival featuring crabs opened recently in Panjin city of northeast China's Liaoning province. One of the highlights of the festival is a large container weighing more than 5 tons, which is used to steam 2,015 crabs at once. The container has a diameter of 6.6 meters, a depth of 2.2 meters, and a lid weighing more than a ton. Visitors to the festival said they're enjoying the food available there. The crabs in Panjin are fresh and tasty. The meat is tender and it smells of the town. The festival will end mid-October.
That's it for this week's Primetime Asia. We'll be back same time next week with more news and features from the Asia-Pacific region. For more news, you can visit our website at www.rtbnews.rtb.gov.bn. I'm Muiz Datuk Paduka Haji Adnan, wishing you a good week ahead and good night. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.